Hello, Robert, my man. It's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Very good. It's a pleasure to be on your show. I'm very excited to be here.
Beautiful, and thank you so very much for being here. You see, I truly appreciate you. And you see, Robert, oftentimes I love to thank my guest for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, my man, I want to say thank you so very much for investing in yourself. You see, Robert, you are on this platform right now because you did invested in yourself. And oftentimes, my man, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. You see, Robert, some couple of months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, my man, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I used the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, Robert, just recently I was on that same road, and this time around, hmm, a lot's changed about the mango tree. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance, and immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did, and it wowed me because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches, and not just mangoes now, Robert. I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely experience that day, and I was so excited. Here is my point: the fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Robert that you are today. That alone has made it impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request from me to be on the show, because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing, your philosophies, your insights, the impact your work is having, and how you're offering your solutions. Your amazing book, these stuff's so beautiful. And just before I sent you that request, my man, I said to myself, I've got to benefit from these beautiful things Robert is doing. And not only me now, because I don't want to look selfish, and even with the audience. And here we had a day with the amazing Robert. So thank you so very much for doing that to yourself. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Elisha could do about it. Thanks so much, my man.
Thank you so much. The privilege is mine.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. So let's get started, my man. You see, I am quite excited to have you on the show today for some reasons, Robert. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Robert, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information, and not just knowledge alone, but the application of it. And you see, my man, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge, and darkness ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking. Why? Because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the incredible Robert on the show is for the sake of the audience. You see, my man, we live in an age where information is as available as grains of sand. We've got lots of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, my man, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So, for that reason, Robert, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. Want to know how Robert got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Robert, my man, over to you.
Perfect. I'm going to mention something that I've never mentioned on a podcast before because I just started in the last week or two realized how important this is. My father left his job. He had a very steady job. He was working. He was an auto body man, so he fixed cars. He painted, wrecked cars for a big dealership. And he left that business when I was very, very small. So I only have very vague memories of my father punching the clock and going to work every day. And then from every time after that, I remember he was at home, he opened a garage in the backyard, and dad was always working. And if there were customers, he was working. If it was Christmas, he was working. If there was work, he was out working. And to see that as a kid, I think really inspired me. And they say that usually entrepreneurs have entrepreneurial children, and I'm the youngest of four. And when I was old enough, I joined the Army. So that's not very entrepreneurial. And I stayed inside of that system for about 8 years. And then right before I got out of the Army after 8 years, I started a recording studio. So I'd actually started my journey too, because I had this fire inside me that I want to do my own thing, which obviously, my father had that too. And I want to give credit to him because I don't bring that up. I don't think I've ever brought that up before on camera, but they say that what your father does, I know some people may not like this, but some people say what your father did for a living has a very heavy influence on what you do as an entrepreneur. So, and I've been on this entrepreneurial journey for a very long time. I've run a couple of businesses. I had an art gallery, which is very strange for a guy that was in the Army. And it was a strange experience, but it goes back to, it doesn't matter what you're selling. If you understand the process and how to get people into a location and to sell product, it doesn't matter if it's art or if it's shoes. The process is the process. And I transitioned recently out of the insurance industry, which has been my bread and butter for the last 10 years. So I put my entrepreneur brain to sleep for 10 years, worked in the insurance industry. And then in about the end of 2023, my brain woke back up. I got re-inspired and I said, I need to start my own thing again. And that's when I started the mastermind group, the podcast. I wrote a book. I mean, I went crazy. And the book, just in case your audience might be wondering, is that book called Scintilla is written for the people sitting in the cubicle that want to escape. They feel like they're chained to the computer, or maybe they work from home and they still feel like they're chained to the computer because the boss is worried. Are you moving your mouse? Everybody working from home is constantly having to touch their keyboard, and you feel like a prisoner in your own home. And the book is for people that don't know what they want to do. They just know they want to be free. They want to escape. So you need a business idea. You've got to come up with something. And as far as I know, there's no book about that. So I wrote that book, Scintilla, which is a guide to coming up with the idea, and also to give you an idea that could be potentially possible, because there are lots of ideas, but what are people willing to pay for? So the book goes into that. So I apologize. That's about as short as I could get my whole life history into there.
Amazing, man. I tell you, that's a beautiful one. So let me be curious. This wonderful book, Scintilla, how was the writing process like? How long did it take for you to finish writing it?
Way too long. It wasn't pleasant. Um, what started the book was I was actually working with a client, and they, without going into a long story, they needed me to be able to come up with ideas. So usually when I have a business problem that I'm trying to solve, what I'll do is I'll go get 3 to 5 books on a subject. If I'm tackling something completely new that I have no background in. So they wanted me to come up with some products and services from scratch. They wanted a miniature competitor to Amazon. They wanted to have like an Amazon.com, but maybe only 10, 15, or 20 products. So like a Shopify. And they
Okay.
brought me in and I said, this is, coming up with ideas from scratch. I said, this is very intellectually intensive. So I immediately went to the bookstore. I went to Amazon and looked for books, how to come up with business ideas. I couldn't find any. And as you know, any entrepreneur, when they see something that should exist but doesn't, that's your product. That's your thing you should do. And that's when the idea of the book is born, because I wanted to purchase this book. How do you come up with an idea from scratch for business? And as far as I know, I think my book is the only book on the subject. I'm not saying it's the greatest book in the world, but it's the only book that I'm aware of out there for sale to go from zero, you have no idea what you want to do, to, by the end of it, you have some idea. And so, to more directly answer your question, it took about 6 months of very intense writing. I had to go back to stories and things that had happened to me in the past. I did get an editor. I went on Upwork. I got a little bit of work that cost a lot of money. I don't recommend it. I suggest you just study being an editor yourself. I don't know if that money was very well spent. And but the most fun part that I want to share with you, even though I didn't have a good time writing it, I had a great time narrating it. I love being on the mic. I bought a nice mic, which I still have for that purpose, and to be able to tell each page and to put my voice into the story and share my excitement, because there's some parts of the book that are depressive and I can kind of go into that mood. And then there's some parts where I'm motivating people and being excited. So I wanted to make the words off the page leap off. So yeah, I really, so if people want to buy the paperback or hardback, hey, that's great. But the the audio book on audible.com has a lot of my personality, and you really get to hear the point the way that I'm trying to make it. That part was very fun. So I encourage your friends and watchers, if they want to write a book, definitely narrate your own audio book too. It's a blast.
Amazing, my man, I tell you. And one thing that stood out is the kind of heart that you have. You see, it is one thing to realize a problem, it is another thing to create a solution for it. And now it is another thing entirely to share that solution. So the fact that you discovered a problem and you decided to, solve that problem, and now it is available in audiobook, Amazon, and everyone can get it. That's so beautiful. Because I know of series of people who, if they know how to put an end to this particular issue, they're gonna create the solution in such a way that it's gonna create more problems. They're just gonna extort the people. So you're going about it this way is really, really inspiring and impressive. Thank you so very much. So, mm, let's talk about publishing a book for the sake of the listeners who would like to be like Robert and publish books also. So how can publishing a book elevate a brand?
Absolutely. Great question. So in Daniel Priestley's book, Key Person of Influence, which is a huge, very popular business book, bestseller. In the book, he explains that writing a book, particularly if you're in the nonfiction business space like I am, that it is one of the highest ways to increase your credibility. Obviously, I always press that you should have a big network too, which is tough for everybody. We're all trying to make connections. But Daniel Priestley made a very strong case in his book that if you want to become a key person of influence on a topic, you should write on it. And again, not to brag myself at all, I'm sure other books will come down the road. But right now, I am the only person who's written a book on this subject. So I would be, for better or for worse, even though I don't have a PhD, I would be um, the subject matter expert on the creation of business ideas. I think there may be people out there that are much better than me, but they just didn't write books. So I have a slight competitive advantage. But KDP, publishing on Amazon, I did everything myself. I did hire
Wow,
a book designer, a graphic designer to do that part. But I uploaded the book to KDP Kindle Direct Publishing
amazing.
myself through Amazon. I uploaded the audiobook. I designed and uploaded the Kindle. So if I can do it, and I'm not the greatest tech savvy person in the world, your audience can do it. So if somebody's sitting there thinking about, I want to write a book, you absolutely can. And it's free. You upload it to Kindle. It costs you nothing. Again, I paid a little bit for editing and I paid a little bit to have the cover design. But if your friends and listeners have business ideas and they want to write a book, absolutely. It costs you nothing.
Amazing, and thank you for sharing that. So, in your wonderful book, Scintilla, you talk about buying intellectual property. What does that mean? Can you talk more on that?
Yes, that's one of my favorite subjects. I'm glad you brought it up. So right now, and I know that we're in different parts of the world, but the U.S. economy is in big trouble. The dollar is in big trouble. Gold and silver are through the roof because you know things are happening right now that aren't good. And people will call me and they'll say, "Well, where are you putting your money into?" They'll ask me because they know I'm obsessed with survival and making sure. And I said, there's really only two things. Like 10 years ago, I would have said buy gold and silver, but now gold and silver are out. the prices beyond what the average person could do. And I said, there's only two things that I see right now that are very cheap to buy that could be worth a lot of money down the road. One is intellectual properties, and two is land overseas in developing countries like Central America. There are some
Wow.
parts in Africa that are absolutely stellar investments. Africa is just going to be amazing over the course of the next 20, 40 years. Explosive growth, particularly in your country. You're in an amazing place right now because you're going to get to watch the most historic growth in your lifetime where you are. So you're in the right place. So anyway, sorry I didn't answer your question. So intellectual properties. Let me give you an example. Your viewers may be aware that some really big stars, big musicians recently have been selling their catalog. So the Beatles sold their stuff, and all of these big musicians. So a lot of people are getting out, then they're selling their intellectual properties because they believe that there's not as much value because of pirating and different things. So you can pick up books, and I'll give you an example. This is straight out of the book Scintilla. You could go get and a matter of fact, this idea is so powerful that the guy that came up with ClickFunnels has been doing this exact same thing. You could go back and you could find motivational books from the 1950s and 60s, approach those publishing companies and buy those rights for pennies on the dollar. And something that I say differently from the ClickFunnel guy, his name's Russell Brunson, the biggest opportunity I see is people are not releasing things in multiple languages. I'm in the Western Hemisphere, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's 50 million people in my hemisphere that speak Spanish. None of my friends that write in English publish their book in Spanish. All you have to do is write your book in English, hire a translator. Now you've got two books. You don't just have one, you've got two things to sell. Think about how many languages there are in Africa. You could buy a book from the 1950s, or a couple, be even better if you got together with some friends and bought a couple of books from the 1950s. The principles are still true. Granted, in the 1950s, when those books were written, Facebook didn't exist, but who cares? If the book is discussing immutable principles that are going to be true, look at these different religious books that people believe. They were valid 1,000 years ago, and I guarantee you people are going to be talking about the three big holy books 1,000 years from now, because there's just immutable truth and poetry in there. There are books out there that are 50 years old that you could pick up very cheaply, translate into multiple languages, and now you have an entire store of products. Because I guarantee you, Scintilla is going to be at the very minimum, it's going to be in Spanish. It's going to be narrated in Spanish. Same thing with my second book. But if you don't want to be a writer, you can buy the intellectual property. And intellectual properties is not just books. You can buy images, you can buy films if you have enough money. But the reason why I say books is I think the average working person could get together with a couple of people in the neighborhood and buy the rights to the book together. So I try to start small and relatable.
Wow. And that's a beautiful one. You say, I never thought about that before. Thank you for sharing that, my man. I
Yeah.
get that.
Team up with your friends and get some books.
I tell you, man. So we have one more to go. So how do you handle big obstacles in business?
I'll tell you the truth. If anybody watches my podcast, I don't pull any punches, and I tell people the truth. When I run into an obstacle, I get very upset. I stay mad for 2 or 3 days. Then I get depressed. and after I go through all that, that's when I get my fuel, and that's when I double down. But I think there's this culture of, just do it no matter what. No, I pound the table. I've punched doors before, so it's okay. Get upset, get frustrated, but then use that energy for power. Use it to redirect that energy. So feel the negative energy, and then you're going to redirect it. So for an obstacle, you just keep going. Anybody who's ever been out on a jogging track knows, if you're running and you stop, you lose so much momentum. You just have to keep going. If you want to win a race, just keep stepping one step in front of another. Life is a game not of speed or strength or looks. Life is a game of endurance. And if you just continue moving forward. So if you feel an obstacle, feel the depression, feel the anger, all of that, but keep putting your foot in front of the other one. And that's the only way to get through it is never stop. Just keep lean into it, lean forward and keep moving.
Life is a game of endurance. Just keep moving, never stop. I got
That's right.
that. I got that. So finally, my man, what would you like to leave the audience with? Like a final thought? And to those individuals who would like to reach out to you and more about the wonderful stuff you're doing, or even ask you questions, or make a purchase of your wonderful book, how can that be possible?
Absolutely. I would say, first of all, the piece of advice I would give, I know a lot of people say, just do it, just get your work out there. I do think that's true. If you want to be a writer, you've got to start writing. I'm a much better writer than I was when I first started. But the real piece of advice that I want to give your audience is find someone who's just one step further down the road towards what you want. A lot of people go to these big gurus who are way above them, and it's hard to understand how they got to where they are. Start to build a network of friends that are just one step down the road further. You don't need these super gurus. You just need somebody who's solved the immediate problem, because those people are easy to have to be friends with. And I encourage your audience, you can connect with me on Facebook, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, you can go to my podcast. I guarantee you, if you write me a message, I'm going to write you back, because how did I get here? People helped me. They pulled me up to
Mm,
where I am. So now I reach back and I pull the next person up and the next person up. So that's how it works. Now they can buy the book Scintilla on Amazon. It's being updated, so in about 2 weeks the second edition is going to come out. So just for your a special for your listeners alone, if they buy the book or audiobook now, then I will give them the new audiobook for free. Just have to email, they have to mention your podcast, but I can send them a digital copy of the updated version absolutely for free. My email is rg@freetimemastermind.com. You can look up Robert Gaines on LinkedIn. You can find Scintilla by Robert Gaines on Amazon. I would say LinkedIn, YouTube, Free Time Mastermind podcast are the best ways to get a hold of me.
beautiful, my man, and that's so generous of you. Thank you so very much. So that's gonna be the end of the show, Robert. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing this wonderful stuff with us. It means a whole lot, my man. Thank you.
It was my privilege. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Be prosperous in 2026.